I decided to create a new company in Amsterdam, which is called Luminis. Not that I founded Luminis, because how many of you know Luminis, by the way? There should be at least one, because he's also working for Luminis, but he's working at the other side of the country. I work for Luminis Amsterdam, and I am what they call the fellow, what we call the fellow. I still feel it's a bit of an awkward title, but I'm a fellow. So now you know what I do, right? I'm a fellow. So next to that I say I'm a search relevance engineer. So I just discussed with someone here in the back, and he said, what? I said a search relevance engineer. So a lot of people still don't know what it is. But when you go to a website, let's say bol.com or any other e-commerce website, and you type in something that you want to buy, yeah, you expect it to be on top, don't you? That's what you would prefer. Well, that's my job, to get what you're looking for on top. So when I was talking to Nico and Olaf about Vamp.io, we were, Olaf already mentioned it a little bit, I saw an opportunity because I saw A/B testing, and what we want for search is that we really want to try out stuff. So you want to be fast in trying out new algorithms, new queries, new index methods, new different things about improving the results of the people that use your search engine. And that's not always easy, because they're always scared. Because what if we change something and it becomes worse? Well, that's when we have A/B testing, and that's when I was very interested in the Vamp.io platform, because you can very easily, with a push of the button, with signals automatically, manually, with a lot of different things, you can just go back to the old version, measure, change something else. Even I think you can even do like 10 or 12 different variants. I'm not saying that it's good, but you could if you want to. You could. So, if you're after this story still curious about me, this is in my holiday location this year in Austria, by the way. I'm on Twitter and LinkedIn and GitHub. And well, there's one good thing about my name. If you type it in Google, you will find me and not someone else. Because no one else has my name.
You engineered this yourself.
So, yeah. Before I came out, I told my parents what my name should be. Yeah.
Or just what you worked at Google.
Google, no, not working in Google, no. Although it would be interesting, by the way. But I'm not sure I'm good enough, because they only hire the best people at certain languages and stuff. And now that I'm not really a pure song developer anymore, you saw when he was asking how many people talk to the business, you were 2-3 people pointing their hands. I was all at the back, so nobody saw me, but sorry, I do that as well. Yeah, but I still like to develop. So I'm a search relevance engineer, and besides that I do a few other stuff. I like to go on holidays, on the top right, I like to ride my bike, and I like to take photographs. So every presentation I do, there need to be a few photographs of myself in there, just to promote myself a little bit. Pat me on the back, like, hey, you did well. So, okay, enough of that. Let's talk technology, because that's why you're here, right? So we have Elasticsearch. Why? Because I'm just an expert in it. So every time I do something, I need to do something with Elasticsearch. If I need to do a project, there's no Elasticsearch in it, give it to someone else, because I like to do Elastic. So there was Elasticsearch in there. We did an e-commerce sample. Olaf showed another one, but why did we use it?
Slow, Ruby?
No, there was no Elasticsearch in it.
Oh, yeah.
So we had to create something else, and I think it was a bit complicated. And what I wanted to show you today is coming from Elasticsearch, going into a Java developers here. Yeah. I understood Scala. I always get the itch from Scala, but that's fine. If others do it, then I have no problem with it, as long as I don't have to do it. But so I don't need to open up IntelliJ, because there's just 3 or 4 Java developers. I wanted to do a Java demo as well, so probably we skip that, and then we have 5 minutes longer for the drinks, right? That's also okay.
Sounds good.
So if there's something that you'd like to know, then come to the drinks. I don't drink, so then I'm still very sharp and I can still help you. No problem at all. And then we go into the demo with Vamp.io. To be quite honest, what Olaf already showed us, I think my demo is a bit lame, but just clap when I'm done and smile, then it feels better for me as well. Yeah. So let's jump into Elasticsearch. How many of you use Elasticsearch? So okay, you use it, but what do you use it for? Do you put logs in it?
No.
because that's what a lot of people do it for. And it's very good for it. So, but it's also what it's called. It's a distributed search index. That's one of the things. It's a high available event store. Anyone uses it for event store? Yeah, events. You know it's not right for events, do you?
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
I mean, no transactions. It's you can lose them. It's no guarantee, no asset, no stuff. But still, it's very good at having a huge amount of traffic. So that's nice. It's a dashboard tool. We're talking about Elasticsearch, dashboard tool. Actually, it's called Kibana. And then it was Elastic, and what's Elastic, what's Elasticsearch, so we use all the names in between, and well, okay, from now on the company is called Elastic. We don't use elk. Who knows elk? No, you cannot use elk anymore. You have to call it the Elastic Stack. It's more chic now. Elastic Stack. So no elk. And Kibana is the dashboard tool. So that's right, but I mean for now just leave it in there. It's nice to start up with Docker, so it's easy and just use it. Log analysis tool, ELK, the L from Logstash. It's still called Logstash, not Elastic Log or something. So Logstash, but it's still part of the Elastic stack. And now these days it's also used for application performance monitoring. Who does use that?
Let's repeat, you mean that kind of stuff? Or?
You mean
The APM module. They have an APM module with predefined dashboards and stuff. You can monitor your Java applications, you can monitor Node.js applications, and really cool. So have a look at it. If you're really into it, then stay focused on our blog at Luminis. No commercial. Let's not do it. History lesson. So. When I was looking at this presentation, I wanted to do something. Well, if there's not a lot of people that know Elastic or just know Elastic for logs, then it's maybe nice to just do a little bit of history. When Shai started out at the year 2000, does anybody know Compass? Because that was actually sort of a predecessor of Elastic, which was also created by Shai. But it was a big open source project, but he hated it. He didn't want to support it anymore, so he just did something new. And then he started with Elastic. Because his wife needed something. She was a cook and she wanted to search through recipes, and he can create something for that. And then 12 years later he founded a company. Yeah, it took some time, sorry. And the fun part was that when this company was founded, I was working for another company called Trifart. You know that one? Yeah. Because I lost a lot of my colleagues. They all went to Elasticsearch. So some of my colleagues founded the company called Elasticsearch back then, and now called Elastic, and which was very fun. So at that time I also got involved a little bit, and I started to do project with it, and I started to do consultancy, trainings, those kind of things. Found, which is actually the hosted part of Elasticsearch. They got part of the family. So Elastic is growing by just getting other people or company on board that are actually doing cool stuff with the Elastic stack. And if it's that cool that they want it on board, then they just, well, they don't say themselves they buy it, because they merge. It is of course a nicer way of saying we just give you a lot of money and then you're ours. But it's still, I think it's a very good strategy, because they have some very neat products out of it. Because there's a lot of people that are enthusiastic and they already build companies, so the stuff that they build are already in the market, people are using it, so it becomes interesting to put it into the stack, and then they make it one big thing. They've got all these release strategies now that they want to deploy it at once and release everything at once, no version conflicts and all those kind of things, so that's interesting. And then in last year, 2 years ago, they started with things like machine learning, APM, and they have now a site search module, which is the sort of the Google search appliance replacement. By the way, I'm not working for Elastic, did I tell them? This is almost commercial. It's just interesting if you're into it. But this year, maybe next year, maybe voice control, because everybody's doing voice control these days. Maybe you can say, hey, search, and then it will search. Maybe image search. I think that's actually quite logical step that they might run into. Neural networks, because they're already into the machine learning stuff, and these days, if you're going into especially the improvement of your search results, we tend to go more into the machine learning area than just an inverted index. So that is actually the most logical way that they will run into. And if you want to know more about it, then there's this website called elastic.co, and then there's an about section, and you can read pages of this.
Can you even do image search without machine learning neural network?
Not in Elasticsearch, no.
No, I don't think you can do it at all.
No, let's not go there. No, let's just say no. Yeah. So, if you want to install it and you don't have someone else who can do it for you, you can do it yourself. It's easy. You just download the package. It's a zip file or a tar file, and you unzip it, and then you run it. And if you have run it, then you can use things like REST APIs, the cut. Who knows the cut API? So many people here working with Elastic, and there's just one who knows the cut API. That's not good. We're going to show you, because that's something you need to know, the cut API. That's really important. When you create an index, you have to do something with settings and mappings. Do we create indexes ourselves?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah? Things like index templates?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. No? So you're not a Logstash user then?
Oh, I just used Python.
Python?
Stuff in it.
Ah, okay. Oh, that's good. That's good. You can do settings and mappings from Python as well.
Yeah.
No problem.
I've seen it.
That's an example when you're
Yeah.
using REST. I mean, that's an advantage. It's
Yeah.
very easy to do in all the languages. And then you add JSON documents. That's it. And then you can search. That's Elastic. So that's all you need to know. It's not that hard. Well, there was some booing when he said Docker, so I became a bit scared. Because I'm not that good at Docker.
No, I don't like Docker thing. I don't only hate the company.
Ah, okay, so then I'm in luck, because I have no way a relationship with Docker, so I'm fine. Phew. Because I'm like a criticaster of the Docker movement. I recently turned Docker. Yes, if this was like this group in the circle, then I would say it's unashamed, yes, I'm also into Docker. Because I didn't really like it. I saw no reason to use it. But these days, when I'm at customers and we start using Docker and we start doing deployments, and I actually started to like it. So that's good. It makes it easier, and that's what I always thought that was the reason to use it. It didn't make it easier for me, but now it has become so easy, and there's so much people who know how to do it that I can just use it. Now I like it. So why use Docker? Everybody's doing it.
Good reason.
No? Not a good reason. So maybe because the infrastructure team prefers it?
I highly doubt it.
Company
I
policy?
think the developers like it mostly.
Yeah, is it more
I
developer
think
thing?
it's a huge ecosystem around it now. Just use marketplace where you can get all these images from.
Yeah, but I think everybody's creating his own images out of
Yeah.
security.
Indeed.
So
Also,
Yeah.
so nobody's using these marketplaces, only the developers. Okay, so we're back at
You can use
developers.
this inspiration for your own image.
Yeah, true. Maybe Docker fits best in the way you deliver applications. Yeah, starting to get there, maybe. This is maybe. Well, then of course in here I had to say this because after this night you want to use Vampire, so you have to use Docker. I mean, come on. There could be no other reason better than this, right? Okay, next slide. So, Elasticsearch on Docker. Is it a good thing? I used to say no, because Docker, Elasticsearch is very resource heavy. So it wants to have all the memory to itself. It wants to have the CPU to itself. It prefers to have high disk I/O. It has all these things it wants to have as much as possible. Then it works at its best. Well, if you know how Elasticsearch deploys stuff in their own stack, so in their own cloud environment, they're using Docker. So yeah, it's a bit stupid to say, no, you should not use it because the biggest cluster is using it. Yeah, okay. Which I still think that you should not use it by default because it adds an extra layer of complexity to it. So if you're just having like 2 or 3 nodes and maybe you're not using it at all, then I wouldn't start using it with Elastic. But it's with the pre-baked images that Elastic has these days, it becomes really easy. So they have a few pre-baked images. There are 2 different versions. If you're starting out, be careful which one to choose, because the default one, you would usually pick the one that has all the commercial features in it as well. and I think it's around 150 or 200 meg bigger than the open source variant. So there's also an OSS, open source variant. Start there. I mean, it's good enough. The only thing with the normal one is that it has monitoring in there as well. So if you prefer the monitoring and you don't want to do it yourself, then it could be a reason to do it. But especially for development, then I would use the OSS variant. So if you look it up, do -OSS and then you're fine. I think I even had an example. Yeah, you see that I copied this line from their website. So they prefer, of course, that you take the commercial side. So if you want to have the open source, then you should type after Elasticsearch -OSS and then you're fine. Then you have the lightweight variant. And then you have your Docker image available. Well, do I need to go through this? I mean, I think you can better explain it to me what it is than I can explain it to you. But in the actual one I'm using, there's actually 2 Elasticsearch services. So they are in a cluster, just to show that it can do it. And I have this Kibana thing as well. So I have 3 services in my example. And then you have your thing running. So let's just briefly, because I promised you the cut API. So let's show the cut API. Oh, I forgot. Oh, no cheating. See if this works. Yeah. How's the font in the back?
Okay.
Yeah. Just spice it up a little bit. Okay, if it's okay, then fine. Well, I've got Docker running in the back. Yeah, it's nice. The Docker. Yeah. We have Kibana, and if you scroll, then you might see some Elasticsearch. There are 2 nodes in there as well. So okay, let's go back to the browser and let's remove this. So you can do a GET request, and this is the first and most important response that you can get. You can check the version of your cluster. It's 6.4 in this case. You can find the build flavor, which is OSS in this case. So I do have the OSS variant. And there's a cluster name in there as well, which is here. And of course, this is something that's very interesting, and you know that it's for search because it says so. Okay, let's move on to the cat API. And this is all the cat APIs that are available. Why was this API created? To make it more easy to read in a console. So you can also use it in Kibana, but it's very easy to do in the console as well. It's not JSON based by default, it's more tabular based. So it's very easy to read when you're in this dark room and you're just typing in this thing and you have no browser access and or you have to use remote terminals or whatever, then it's very easy, but it's also fast.
What is that thing on the first line?
That's the cat symbol. You don't recognize it?
Come on.
Come on, this is the cat.
I
know?
know.
Okay, yeah, I'm a dog lover as well, so I don't really like the cat symbol. But
My dog likes it.
there's more stuff in here that I like that others don't. So let's not go there again. So there's a lot of stuff. But if you want to know something about one of the specific APIs, you just type help at the end, and then you can get help. So you get all the columns that you can choose. You can do the default ones, and you can ask for column names, and this is all very easy to use. You can find information about indexes, you can find information about aliases, about the nodes that a cluster exists of, the status. You can do a lot of stuff in here, and it's very accessible. There's one index in here, the ecom product. And there's one thing called an alias, and this sort of works like aliases from your OS that you can use. You can just point with a simple name to a more complex index name, which is used a lot. If you want to migrate indexes, then you just give it a timestamp and you fix your new index with a timestamp, and when it's done you just move the alias from the old one to the new one, and your application talks to the alias and then it keeps on working. So the aliases is also important.
Can you do also A/B testing?
With Elastic, A/B testing. No, you need another product for that, to do that. And that's made very easy with Vampire.
Are there more t-shirts?
No.
Stickers.
I should have brought Luminis t-shirts, see if you would wear it. Yeah.
I haven't.
Okay,
Well,
so
in 2 years.
if you want to have a look at the cat API, then just type in the cat name and then try one out. Is there something you want to try? Anything you want to see?
Thread pool.
Thread pool. Well, I can tell you what the response of this will be. It will be
2 threads.
no. Well, but actually, this is changed because there's almost everything. No, it's not everything is 0. Usually, it was almost an empty array, and it's a new version. So, but this is the thread pool. All the available thread pools. Yeah, there's not a lot happening in here, but that's not that strange because we're not doing anything. So how would you create an index? Let's just do something like, the familiar test index, who doesn't know it? And we can put something in here with a title, and we would say, Vamp rocks, yeah.
Don't go overboard, eh? Don't go overboard.
Then you get exception.
It's not good, huh? It's not good. Oh wow, this is interesting. Deprecated stuff. Nice. Okay. Well, then because we want to have 2 documents, and I like Docker. No, don't worry, not that soccer team. I won't do it. I won't do it. So now we have 2 documents. So first thing is Elasticsearch schemaless. It's always a nice question I ask at trainings. Who dares? Schemaless or not? Schemaless or not? Nobody? Come on, guys. It's that late in the evening. Okay, so yes, you can start without a schema because we just know it's not schemaless. It's a dynamic schema. Yeah, and what does a dynamic schema mean? It means it will try to guess what you mean. So in this case, it will make a string. If it's a number, it will try to make it a number. If it thinks it's a date, it will make it a date. And yes, it will go wrong.
So it's schema guess instead of schemaless.
Yeah, exactly. So, would you say like, do you need a schema? Yes, you need a schema. So to explain that a little bit more, let's just have a look at the content pipeline. I mean, if you want to know more about this Elastic stuff, I can go on and on because I can give trainings for 2 days about it. So, and I think we had like half an hour, 45 minutes, and then you want to have another beer and then be on the road. So let's not go there. But if you have questions, just ask them. I mean, or I will be around as well, or you find that Twitter thing and ask me. So we have this content pipeline. Yes, there it is. We have a document and we store it into Elastic. That's what we saw. We did that one in the test index. But what happens then is there's an analyze step. And how many of you know about the inverted index? Search thing. Does anybody not know it at all? Do I have to explain it a little bit? Well, if you have these books of paper, and then in the back you had these things that you could look up words.
Yes.
And then there was a number underneath the word, and then you could go to that page, and then you would look through all the page where it was. And if you were lucky, then maybe you found it. Well, that's sort of an inverted index. It's slightly more complicated, but that's the idea. So instead of going through all the book, you just go to the back of the book, you find the word you're looking for, then you go immediately to the page it's on, and then you know where you have to be. Well, that's what this inverted index is about as well. The way the words are stored into this legenda, this index, that's what the analyzer does. So it can do a lot of stuff, like if you enter words with capitals, or if you have spaces in between them and you want to keep them together, or you want to tear them apart. This is what analyzers do. If you want to use diacritics, if you want to use certain patterns, if you have this tags line of string with commas in between and you want to make that separate words, those are all things that we can do with specific analyzers. You need to think about this, because the better you do this, the easier it becomes to search, and the better results you can get. Then you do this query, and this query is also going to be analyzed, usually the same way your documents are, and then it will match against the inverted index. If it has a match, then it will return the document. and then there comes this nice algorithm that will do a score. So if you have multiple documents, it will calculate a score for each document, and then it will rank them based on the score. And yes, you can influence this process. And yes, this is what the search engineer really likes to do. I'm not going into details today because that would be a bit too much, but if you want to, no? Okay, then not. Then I won't go. So this is an example document of my shop that I'm going to create. There's not a lot of data in there, but it's enough. We have this call handle thing. We have an image that we actually get from Shopify. So this is a data set that Shopify provides. You can use it. It's open source or Creative Commons or whatever. And then there's a tagline, and there's something like a title, which is very interesting. I mean, you will see that the products that we can actually buy in this store are really nice tools. And then there's a vendor thing, and look, there's something here called a click, which in this case is 0. We'll get back to that later on. So, I already mentioned analyzers. I didn't mention shards. And Elasticsearch is something with Lucene underneath, and we want to scale Lucene. So we have multiple Lucenes, and then we have shards. So that's actually the whole story. So if you have 3 shards, you just have 3 Lucenes. And then Elasticsearch knows which is where. So you can put one Lucene on that machine and the other Lucene on that machine, and that way you can divide and conquer your data. We have the normal shards and we have the replica shards. So the normal shards are just if you want to spread out to make your index bigger, and the replica shards if you want to do a lot of queries and you want to be fail safe and you want to be able to lose a node and then the others keep on functioning, then you need replicas. So that's in the settings. Then we have this analysis part with some analyzers. In this case there's the comma tokenizer. This does what I mentioned before. So if you have this string with tags and a comma in between, and we want them to be separate tags in the end, then we use this comma analyzer, which does a simple pattern split and based on the comma, and it will also strip out the spaces and those kind of things. So you need to specify this when you create the index. If you don't do it, then it won't work. And then there's the mapping. So you have the settings and you have the mapping. The mapping will actually tell all the fields. So if you go to the tags, this is an example, it says it's of type text, and it uses this analyzer comma separated that we mentioned in the settings, and the field data is, well, let's leave it for now, that's not that important. So this is the way we tell our index how to use the text that we provided, and that way we tell it how we want to use it during search. There are some challenges though. You cannot change it. So if you have provided a mapping, and for instance say that you have given this the comma separated analyzer, and then suddenly it changes and they don't provide a comma anymore but they provide an array, then it becomes a lot harder because you cannot really change the analyzer. Why can't you change the analyzer? Because there is already a lot of stuff in this index, and if I change the analyzer, it doesn't necessarily mean that it will change the whole index. So what you would need to do if you want to change something, then you have to re-index everything. Yeah? Well, the same is true for upgrading Elasticsearch itself. Well, these days it has become a lot easier. When you were still using the 1 or the 2 versions, then you can only do minor updates, and you couldn't do a major update. These days, if you have a cluster in, I think it started in 5, I'm not really sure, but I think in 5, you could do a running upgrade to 6. So even if you have this cluster of like 20 or 25 or whatever kind of nodes, you can upgrade them one by one, which is a huge advantage because there are customers that are still on, I just spoke to a customer that was using 1.03, and they wanted to do a rolling upgrade. And I want to change the data in between as well, which was all fine, but it turned out that their data was 1 terabyte. And to make it doable, they did not store the original document in the index. So there was no way to do it. because you don't have the original data, so you have to take the original data from somewhere else, and I think the migration lasted for like 2 weeks because it was kind of complicated, and the data store that had the original data was kind of slow. But these are things that you have to think about when upgrading Elasticsearch. And you can imagine that if you would do it, and it would take you like a lot of time, and then something breaks, what would you do? I think there was a question for you, like what do you do when you have this chain of upgrades? I think it was one of your questions. I mean, with Elasticsearch, this is really hard. There is no rollback scenario. The only rollback scenario there is create a snapshot and put it back. That's the only way you can do it. So upgrading Elasticsearch, especially if it's big, if it's really big, then that becomes an issue. What if you want to add fields? Well, that's no problem. You can add fields. So yay, you can add new stuff. That's fine. Because it's just adding to the index. It doesn't mean that it will do it for all the other documents that have already been indexed, but at least you can add new fields for the new documents. It won't break. That's fine. But you cannot change the format of a field. So you cannot make something which is a float become a date, for instance. That's not possible. I mean, you really have to re-index your stuff. So these are challenges you face when you're working with Elasticsearch. Oh wow, this was a crash course in Elasticsearch. So you are now Elasticsearch experts. Yeah, because I always say I'm a Python expert because I run script. So now I'm a Python expert.
And the Docker expert.
Sorry?
And the Docker expert.
And a Docker expert as well, yeah. Yeah. It goes fast tonight, doesn't it? Yeah, nice. So now let's make you an e-commerce expert. Yeah, rock on. Okay, so this is the shop. Yeah, we've got these wrenches, really nice stuff. And I think we also got bicycles in there. Well, this is a very successful shop. And we created it with this architecture. Yeah, so Java, for those that don't know it, this is Spring Boot. Ever heard of Spring? Even if you're not from Java land, then maybe you know it. Swagger, do you know Swagger? Yeah, because that's nice. I really like it if you're doing RESTful APIs or semi-RESTful APIs, then Swagger is really nice to do. And the backend is it's kind of slowish. The backend is created in Semantic UI React. Mouthful. It's React, but with Semantic UI made easy, which is good as a backend developer. Then you don't have to think too hard about your front end. You just have these nice components and it just works. For this time, we have chosen to use H2 as an in-memory data store. Yeah, it's just a relational database, but in memory. It's just easy. So when you build it, then you just provide an SQL file, and when it finds it on the class path, it will load it into the database, which is very easy when you're creating stuff for a demo. Yeah, and every project we use Elasticsearch. So of course there is Elasticsearch in there for the search. And there's something called here, which is the high-level REST client. And yes, we do have a low-level REST client as well in Java land. Yeah, really good stuff. Well, it's actually really a cool client, and it's a very nice movement because Elasticsearch is built in Java, and it used to work in two ways. You could use a transport client, and the transport client was actually a binary protocol, a binary data between your Java application and the cluster, which in the beginning was really a lot faster than the HTML, the HTTP connection. But these days they did a lot of optimization, and it's not really faster anymore. And there was a really tight coupling between the version you used in your client application and Elasticsearch itself, because even in minor updates it could break. So yeah, that was not really nice. And now they are moving the Java client to the same type of client as the Python and the PHP and the JavaScript, and they all are starting to use the same mechanisms to connect to Elastic, which makes it a lot easier. And which I also always feel funny, because usually we talk about backwards compatibility. Well, if you're ever going to create a Java application with the high-level REST client, it's forward compatible. Of course. I hear you say, why not? Well, there's actually a good reason for it, because usually when you start out on a project, you know the version you're going to use in production. But when you want to upgrade your Elasticsearch cluster, it would be not so nice if your application would break. So it's always hard. Do I want to first upgrade my application, to first upgrade the cluster? Well, because it's forward compatible, you can upgrade your cluster and your application will still work. That's the whole idea. So it's not that strange. Integration testing, because we are at a continuous integration meetup, so we have to do, of course, something about continuous integration. And well, my touch on continuous integration was integration testing. So one of my colleagues wrote actually quite a nice blog post about it. He is very into Docker, and I am always using the Elasticsearch Maven plugin, which is, well, if you're just a Java developer and you're accustomed to using Maven, it's really nice. It's a plugin that starts up when it starts in the integration phase, and it starts up an Elasticsearch node, and then you can do your integration tests against it, and then when you're done it will break it down again. But if you're using IntelliJ or some other IDE, then it doesn't really work, so you have to do it yourself, and that's not that nice. So it's okay, but it's not perfect. Then there's also this Docker Maven thing that actually has sort of the same problems. It's okay-ish, but it's still in Maven. And well, I haven't tried this one myself, but there's something with no support for Elasticsearch plugins, which is usually fine. But if you're really into a project where you want to do things with machine learning, learning to rank, then it becomes hard because these are plugins, you have to install them, so it doesn't really work anymore. So what he now has done is there is a project called test containers, and these test containers make it easy to embed Docker containers into your Java application. So from your Java API you can start it up and you can bring them down, and they are all like pre-configured containers, so you can use the Elasticsearch test container and database containers, and there's a lot of containers there, which really make it a lot easier to embed it into your build of your project. The only disadvantage could be that you have to use Docker. Well, if all the other components of your application are not using Docker, then it will be a bit stupid, I think. But still, it could be a good reason to start using it. Well, actually, these kind of things for me were the reason to start having a look at it and really starting to get an idea like, hey, this is interesting, an interesting way of doing it.
If you want to have a Maven plugin that actually works and supports the random ports and stuff, the Fabric Docker Maven plugin works really nicely.
Okay. Okay.
And you can just use the random ports from Docker, and then the random port will be exposed as an environment variable, so you can use it in your test.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know. I will tell Mark. Just put it in a comment on his blog post, and ah, cool, thanks. So there is another Docker plugin that knows how to do this a lot better. But that's the cool part about open source, is it? There's always like 20 flavors, and you just have to pick the right one. But it's good to know. Oh, I created these nice things in there, and I forgot about it. Well, it looks nice. Okay, but I won't go here. So, I mean, if there's just like 2 Java developers, then this won't do a lot of logic. So if you really want to see it, just come to me, and I'll be happy to provide you my look in IntelliJ and show you code. So we were talking about the Prophethood website, and of course, I mean, back in 2016 we thought like, yeah, we're going to make it with this e-commerce web shop, and then in 2017 we still thought like, yeah, we're going strong. But this year, and the expectancies for 2019, nah, okay, it could be, but this is what I want. I mean, this is my ambition, not the black line. I want to go on with this growing stuff, and I want to get bigger, and so I want to improve my search. Because someone told me that for your e-commerce website, search is probably the most important thing next to SEO that you should have. So I thought about it, and I talked to some people. I went on the street and I was looking on my phone and showing them the website, and they said, hey man, why don't you have filters? I want to filter by brand, and I want to do using tags and stuff, and of course there's something like, if you have popular products that are bought a lot or people click on, then I want to see them higher in the results, and so I started thinking about it. But yeah, So I made a design. No wrenches. I now have bicycles. Yeah, wrenches and bicycles. I'm very good at those. So I buy them, and I think I know this one. So I added these types and these tags, and I thought, yeah, man, now I'm going to do it. And I had this thing that you could easily remove the tag again, and yeah, this is it. This is it. I want this, but still, I'm a bit scared. What if it goes wrong? I mean, 200,000 a year. I mean, it's okay. I get a nice sandwich out of it, so I can drive my car, maybe buy a motorbike every 5 years. So that would be nice. So why risk it? Well, what if I have the option to test it? And then I ran into Olaf, and he said, man, I've got a solution for you. So we're going to do condition-based and going to do routing stuff, and I can deploy both my sites, and I'm going to check if someone who is using, because he has this fancy Mac, but then you don't use Safari because you use Chrome, and these are probably other people than these lazy bums that just buy these Mac and then use Safari because it's on it, like me. I'm a lazy bum. So maybe the more fancy stuff is more for the lazy bum, or the other way around. I don't know. I want to test it out. So I'm going to use Fab.io. And because Olaf already gave his presentation, you probably know this, right? This is clear. Or not?
Totally.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is from his website, so first I thought, well, am I going to explain this? I thought, yeah, of course I'm going to, but yeah, now he's already done it, so I don't have to anymore. Well, there's one very important part in this slide. It says Elasticsearch, so I can use it. I mean, great. It uses Elasticsearch, so I'm allowed to use it. So next slide. So we created this application, and well, you've seen this real life. So I'm going to demo it later on. Yeah, really, I am. Oh man, live demos. So there's two applications. One who says it's feature off, and the other says it's feature on. So it's real two different Docker environments, Docker images. Yes, it was easy to do it in one image as well with a few parameters, but that's not cool. So we created two different Docker images, and oh yeah, I forgot. I can zoom in, and well, next slide, yeah. No zoom effect here, I think. And then we have this routing, but yeah, I mean, Olaf already showed us that one says 0%, the other says 100%, and then here it says in this very good color on this beamer, it is black on blue.
High priority bug fix.
Yeah, black on blue.
Contrast, fix contrast.
I mean, I said a lot of nice stuff about you, so I can also make a bit of fun of you, right?
Yeah,
that's okay. So this is something they're going to fix, but it says user agent Chrome. Yeah, believe me, it says, and it says 100%. So if you have you come in with Chrome or Opera, I learned it's also Chrome. Then you go to the one version, and in all the other cases you go to the other version. That's the whole idea. Demo time. I hope it still works.
Fingers crossed.
Oh,
License expired.
exciting! Now, I was smart in this case. I just told him to get me an environment. So I'm running on their environment now. I think it's Nico is gone, and he said be gentle with it because it's my credit card, and so
Yeah, that's
I
it.
kept banging on it. I mean, that's really fun, of course. So this is the Safari edition. Let's zoom in first on the Chrome version, and let's search for wrench. It works. So this was the first version. This is for the Mac users who say everything can be better than what Mac specifies, so you use another browser. And we blame them by not giving them facets, just because I like it. So they don't have facets, and there is another trick, is that the order of the products that we return are just the order that is specified by the standard scoring function. So it uses a text-based scoring function, like if this term occurs more often in the database, it's less important, and if it's on a long field, then it's less important than if it's on a short field. Things. Why is Elasticsearch provides you with a score, and so it's like, this document is probably better in what you're looking for. This is the order that it will give it back to you. But now, when I go to the exact same URL in Safari, I type the exact same word, and Safari is a bit slower, so it takes a bit longer. I don't know why it took longer. But now we have these facets. And when I click on one, for instance, if I would say the range again, then it now has only 6 hits. And there's another trick. Let's say that people start buying this one because it's black, and black is cool. So we just simulate that a few people are buying it. And now I'll search on it again, and it suddenly becomes more important. I guess in my last demo I did the red one because it's more clicked even more than this one. But this is what you can do. So it's of course a very basic idea of showing you that we can change the query based on the Docker and your user agent, but you can imagine that if it's more fine-grained, if you're into things like Bookspot, for instance, that I'm working on at the moment, is there we really tuning like factors of boosting factors to see what happens and what people would like of it. So there's a whole analysis chain underneath as well. And then you can really test out, and if it's better, then you can use all the stuff that Olaf showed us to just immediately put it into production, or maybe use it permanently. So not really in A/B testing, but more like groups. So if you are from one group, you go to this image. If you're in another group of users, you go to the other image. You can do things like, if you're on a mobile, we give you something completely different than if you're on a desktop. Those kind of things, we can do that all using this same mechanism. And I think that was what I wanted to show you.
I have a question. And it's not prepared, so
you can put on the lights maybe.
I really wonder, like, you're not the only one using Elasticsearch, yeah? It's a big success.
Yeah. There's more people.
A few more people in the world.
Yeah, they're going into the public domain now, and I think they're thinking about 1.5 billion. So something.
I think they're doing well.
Yeah.
I can imagine that people want to try out things.
Yeah.
Elastic, and it's not like a new product.
No.
So how would people normally do that?
How they would try out stuff.
Yeah, like okay, experiment with ordering or.
They always call me. And then I come and then I help them. I mean, of course, there's a lot of stuff you can do. I mean, it's not for. There's a reason why I call myself a search relevant engineer, because it's not something you can do in 5 minutes. If you want to do this well, this is actually a continuous job. I mean, if you're looking at companies like Booking or Bol, they have like teams of 4 or 5 people that are doing this constantly. They're moving stuff, they're changing the order and then measuring it and watching what happens, and they're busy with it. So of course everybody is experimenting with it, but it depends a lot on what you want to use it for. So a lot of people just use it for logs. I mean, if you go into the Kibana stuff and you use it for logs, then there's no real searching. There's only filtering. So that's the only thing that you would do. You would just click like, now I want to have everything from warning, now I want to have this, now I want to have that. And usually you just do aggregations that I didn't really show, but and you don't really do search. That's but where you're really into the search domain, for instance, if we're working at a customer who's doing working in the patents business, and they have this cluster of, I think, around 90 nodes, and they have multiple terabytes on content. But for them, they have very advanced users that are really creating queries that are the page of 1H4, and they're really looking into patents that should all match, and they don't want to miss anyone. So it's a very different thing from consumers that would just want to see the 5 or 10 best matches and then they choose one out of that. Or you have someone that can't miss out on anything that matches because they need to see them all. Those are complete different use cases. And so I mean, starting it out is very easy. I think that you mentioned it as well, that you just installed it and it worked, and And then suddenly, suddenly things become a bit harder, and better be prepared for that. But it's nice to try it out. It's very easy. You just you unpack the zip file, you start it up, and just a few REST calls against it, and you're done. And you can start playing around with it, and it's not a bad thing to start like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I would always prefer to have customers that have been there, and then they realize that they need more, because that makes it a lot easier for me to say like, okay, but this will take time, and this will take money. This will really cost money if you want to do this right, because you already know the 80% part, but the 20% part that comes after that is always hard.
Yeah. Let's say I want to compare different ways of ordering, or like you show.
Yeah.
How would you typically know? Now you're showing this with FAB, right? Is it multiple versions next to each other?
Yeah, it depends a lot if you just want to, like this, just change the query.
Yeah.
So then, I mean,
It's
I create a few tools, usually with things like Python, just because it's easier, and then put a few things next to each other.
Yeah.
So I have 1 and 2 queries, and I just compare them.
Yeah.
And you can calculate if you want to have. Sometimes you know the ideal ordering, so or you just ask people. So what you can do is you have the business owners or some experts that just go through it. They search on certain terms, and then they say this one is relevant, this one is not relevant, this one is relevant, this is really relevant, and then you can use that data to tune your algorithm. And then you can calculate scores. So like this query is actually this close to the ideal result set, and so that these are things you can do. And there are some tools that do this. There is one from a company called Open Source Connections. It's called Cupid, and this is really it's a combination from developers putting in the queries, and then business users executing queries and then marking documents as relevant to that type of query. And then you can start tuning and run a different query against the same set of documents to see if you improve or not. So there are tools that do this, but this is the moment in time for search where we are at. So I mean, we've got for a lot of customers the Elasticsearch problem out of the way, and now it becomes like, okay, now I want to have the right results.
Yeah.
And that's why the moment is now that the tools start coming in this area, and people start using it that way as well.
Okay.
And that's where the click come from, probably.
Oh yeah, I didn't come back to that, right? Yeah, so the click is it was in the document, so every time, I didn't really show, but I clicked the buy button a number of times, and I adjusted my query with a function score, and the function score query just says like, okay, if there's clicks, then give my boost to that document. Yeah, and there's things like by date, by rating, by clicks, by buys, by...
I was wondering the same question, but now I recall you have to click there.
Maybe I should have made it like visual, but I'm a backender, so there was no default thing in this semantic UI stuff, so I didn't do it.
So how often do you find yourself not dealing with TF, IDF and this additional scoring? How often do you implement like a different function for searching behind the scenes?
Depending on the situation that you're in, almost all the time. I mean, the TF-IDF is never enough. You always need to have some boosting. I would always start with the default one. And TF-IDF, these days we call it BM25, which is sort of similar, but it's slightly different. And I would always start there. I mean, don't make it complicated because you can. Start with the easy one that's already there. Measure. And if you have your measurements in order and you have seen it that you can see if you're doing right, things like how many times are clicked on the number one result, the second result, how many times do I get no results. If you have got this in place, then you can start tuning and then you can get more complicated.
Yeah, because with structured data this becomes much easier, right? But with unstructured data, if you've got like a full text search or something like that, that becomes more difficult to get relevant results.
Yeah, if you have just one field with all the text in it, then it becomes really hard. Yeah, true.
You showed an A/B test. Can you only do an A/B test when you don't have to re-index your index?
No, but then you have two clusters or two indexes.
Yeah, two indexes.
Yeah, that could also be the case. Yeah. So you could change your the way you interact from one application. Of course, you have to have two modules then as well. So just like we now had two Docker images, then we could also have two indexes and then configure each Docker image to go to one of the two indexes,
Yeah.
and then you could do that. Yeah.
Have you ever done that? Because I can imagine
And
while you're
stuff.
doing an A/B test.
I've never used Vampio in production. So
Okay.
this was a business case that we feel like this is really interesting,
Yeah.
and we're looking for customers that want this. So if you know one, then so no, I haven't done it in a scenario like this.
Yeah.
But what we did do is like the pull a switch with alias that I mentioned. So if you have multiple indexes, then you can just flip the alias to one or the other index and then try it out and maybe flip it back. That's of course possible, but it's usually things we do by hand in Elasticsearch itself. So we just use Kibana, we prepare the query, and then we check the results. And sometimes we have these tools with the optimal results and we compare them, but that's the path that I usually take. So to try to come up with the ideal list and then compare my query results to the ideal list.
How do you compare that?
Yeah, that's something we call NDCG, for instance, or there's just factors like if you have these ideal lists, then the number one it's given 10 points, the number two 9 points, and then you can just calculate the score for your ideal
Do you
list.
automate that or do you do it manually?
Yeah. There's also a way in Elasticsearch that you can do this. So you can track these ideal scores in Elasticsearch itself, and then in a query you can ask for this factor.
So you can self-optimize or auto-optimize in some form.
Maybe in version 8. I don't know. Not yet. No, not yet.
But you can use these. You can query them.
Yeah.
And you can randomize or
Yeah,
change
but
stuff.
that's what machine learning does, of course. I mean, that's what when learning to rank, for instance, come into place.
Yeah.
And if you're really into that, then come to JFall, which is an annual jug thing, because there I'm going to do a presentation about that. And if you're just querying for learning to rank and Elasticsearch, then you most likely find another already recorded presentation. And then, so there's a lot of information about that. But that's really that's the point that we're at now for a lot of customers.
Yeah.
That they're thinking about is, can we use machine learning to improve the results? That's and it's possible. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Still need the features though, right?
Yeah.
For the
Yeah, the feature extraction you still need to do. So
Yeah.
you still need a data scientist that can do it for you. Yeah, but we're all data scientists, aren't we? I mean, I read the book. So, but the cool part is I don't want to be too much in this area, but we have a few data scientists in our company as well. So we generally work together a lot as well in this area. Yeah. So, but it's a different thing. I mean, I know how it works, I understand it, but if you're really into it, I mean, it's an expertise. So, yeah. Okay. Yeah? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.